One last song. Someone new. The cauldron sits at the heart of the Brock, a golden island in a sea of darkness. Actually reaching the fortified steading at the heart of Black Boughs is no mean feat, even for the Navarre. It lies deep within Broceliande, and there are no roads to follow. The Valorn spawn throng the cursed woods in spite of the winter curse hanging heavy over the territory. The miasma coils between the trees, making every fight a potentially fatal encounter. The challenge of actually reaching the Brock serves, perhaps intentionally, to discourage all but the most committed. In this case, the most committed means over 300 Imperial champions and their followers. Every nation, save the Imperial Orcs, is represented. There is even a freeborn hero come all the way from Madruga to explore the far eastern shores of the Empire. Many travel together for safety. Some sneak along shadowed paths, avoiding the Valorn spawn. The steading welcomes them all. The heralds of Rhiannos serve them their onion soup, infused with the rich power of the Summer Realm. Then, as often as not, they leave the next morning. The influence of the cauldron and the urging of the heralds mean few can resist the siren call of the forest. The dangerous, monster-filled, mystery-haunted woods of Broceliande. Nothing lasts forever, sadly. The cauldron's power, like all things, must eventually diminish and pass from this world. As autumn lengthens towards winter, the magic begins to fail. A few stragglers make it to the Brock in time to taste the last of its potence, and then it is done. The gold fades, and the cauldron is nothing more than a cauldron. After some discussion, the cauldron is left in the keeping of Navarre. It will remain in the Brock as a monument to the grand adventure of 384 YE. The heralds of Rhiannos have no interest in tarrying in the relative safety of the steading. With their duty to oversee the cauldron done, they are eager to join the heroes exploring the depths of Broceliande. Into the woods. The first order of business is to secure Alario in the south and Borsdell in the north. The number of Druge in Broceliande has been on the rise ever since their unexpected involvement in the battle against the heirs of Turiniel. Reports suggest that more of them have been sneaking over the borders from the barons in months since. It seems to be only a matter of time before they establish a more significant presence. They are adept at avoiding direct encounters and melting back into the woods whenever they meet a questing knight or a Navarre scouting band. Imperial champions receive additional support in both Borsdell and in Alario. The senator for Thorunin has reached out to the Great Forest Orcs, who also have an interest in keeping the forces of the Malon from threatening their new home. They soon prove to be effective allies who know the overgrown paths of Broceliande surprisingly well. After they first fled the barons to avoid enslavement by the Druge, many of them made temporary homes for themselves in Borsdell. They clashed from time to time with the northern Navarre, but rarely seriously. They abandoned their settlements here in 377 YE, when the Druge were driven from the barons, eager to return to their ancient homes under the eaves of Paetat. Their time in Broceliande gave them some familiarity with the Valorn. That knowledge has only grown in the last few years as they have dwelled in Thorunin. Many of them have joined Navarre stridings and travelled the Empire, encountering abominations in Hercynia and even Liathaven. For the most part, they view the Valorn as an unspeakable corruption. It is a horror that twists the natural power of the forest, creating a mockery of life. Hunters and warriors with keen spears, scouts with sharp eyes, and healers eager to battle corruption join the Empire's heroes in the quest to explore Broceliande. They favour the Navarre, understandably, but they are happy to fight alongside any Imperial force, save perhaps the Dornish. The Druge are quickly driven out, their scattered forces no match for the Imperial heroes. The Malum Orcs are skilled at avoiding open battle when the numbers do not favour them, and an army, even a Navarre army, would have struggled to bring them to battle, strung out as they are. That strength becomes a weakness once the Empire is able to deploy large numbers of small military units through the area, allowing them to scour the regions clear. Scores of Druge are put to the sword while the rest flee east towards the barons. With the periphery secured, sentry posts are established along the borders. The Watchers will stay vigilant, not only for orcs from the Malum, but also against any potential expansion of the Broceliande Valorn. With the threat from the Druge ended, the Navarre and their allies are able to secure the most important routes between the steadings. They are even able to carve a few paths through the Valorn itself. Slow erosion will eventually close these paths again, but for now it is possible for small groups to pass safely from Alario to Borsdell, or to seek the sanctuary of the Brock. Though the Druge have been quickly defeated, the green horror that infests Broceliande is magnitudes more terrible, and it seems almost impossible that it will ever be defeated. The miasma has lurked here for centuries, condemning those who fell here to a macabre existence as husks. Some of these ghoulish threats show clear signs of having once been Imperial champions. The scions of ancient Navarre stridings and steadings swallowed by the Valorn long ago. Proud Dornish knights who ventured here seeking glory. Highborn cataphracts and unconquered, whose bodies were corrupted by the miasma. Relics of courageous lives ended by the Valorn, some of them stretching back to the foundations of the Empire and beyond, are gathered from husks finally laid to rest. Rage and ruin. First, though, is the matter of the heirs of Turoniel. These crazed cultists appear to have forged an alliance with the Valorn, or at least found a way to live in unity with it. Many were once Navarri, although they abandoned their oaths and embraced the chaos of the Valorn. Their power was broken when they were defeated in Broceliande and driven from Hercynia and Thrunin. The last remnants of secret conspiracy hide in Liathaven, but their time is done. Perhaps one day they will be a threat once more, but for now they are shattered and scattered. Some remnants of their mad schemes still lie beneath the boughs of the deep woods, however. Pushing into the depths of the forest, protected by the vigor of the summer realm, fragments of their presence are uncovered. A collapsed steading given over to the Valorn, but with signs that people dwelled here until only recently. A glade warded with winter-infused stones containing the ruins of an encampment, surrounded by murderous briar-spawned husks. Even a battlefield in the east of Vale's Lament, where highborn and heir fought each other to mutual destruction. In each location, a handful of clues are gathered, a handful of relics that might provide some insight into the heirs and their ultimate goals. Several of these clues point to a hidden steading in the depths of dark ranging. As pieces are brought together, an expedition heads into the deep woods to investigate. There they find the remnants of a structure, infested with husks and partially colonized by ettercaps. There is little sign that this is the result of human or orc hands. Rather, the living trees themselves have been woven together into a wooden fastness. An irregular, sprawling mass of trunks and boughs, undergrowth, brambles, and less identifiable things. Tunnels and chambers burrow and coil haphazardly with the vegetation. Vines twisted together into ladders connect a maze of cramped passages and unevenly shaped rooms. Here and there efforts have been made to make the place more inhabitable, but they have rapidly fallen apart under the irresistible fingers of the Valorn miasma. Exploring the edifice is no mean feat. Powerful husks lie within, and a nest of ettercaps have taken over perhaps a third of this structure. As with the insect abominations encountered elsewhere, the ettercaps fight with a particular cunning. They employ much more sophisticated tactics than any other Valorn spawn so far encountered, working together to lay ambushes and lure the unwary into traps. The husks are just as dangerous. Many of them evidence magical abilities beyond the norm for briar-spawned. The two groups do not cooperate except by accident, but they make the cramped and labyrinthine confines of the abandoned heirs of Turoniel stronghold that much more terrible. Those Imperial heroes venturing into dark ranging receive powerful additional support from outside Broceliande. The Grey Pilgrims of Highguard are committed to the destruction of the Valorn and the freedom of those souls trapped within its vegetative web. Highborn priests have consistently supported efforts to fight the Valorn. Now they send supplies of liao, healing herbs and potions gathered from their congregations to those fighting in Broceliande. And when news of the heirs of Turoniel stronghold spread, they go further. Lay followers of the Way, committed to the virtues, leave their homes and travel north into the deep woods. Many are veterans of the war against the Druge and recent engagements with the Valorn. They offer both spiritual and practical military support to the adventurers wherever they can. Together, adventurers delve the secrets of the heirs' hidden base. The heralds of Rhiannos warn against a dreadful horror that lairs here. They claim it is something not of the Valorn, but similar enough that it might as well be. As explorers press deeper into the twisted structure, they encounter the first signs of something else, something different to any Valorn spawn they have previously encountered. Tracks of something large gouged into woven walls, floors, and ceilings. Echoes of voices shouting or singing or arguing. Thick yellow sap that thrums with spring magic under the fingers of cautious magicians. The source of this odd spore is uncovered at the very heart of the fastness where a great chamber awaits. Reminding some of a cancerous wooden cyst, the place brims with spring magic. A regio tied to that realm opens here. The first to reach it mistake the creature for a part of the structure, until it moves with terrible speed and lethal force. It takes the form of a massive twisted tree dragging itself along on muscular, coiling roots that also serve to trap and trip those who get too close. It has a maw set into its trunk, its body full of splintered wooden teeth. It has dozens of coiling boughs, reaching arms tipped with tearing talons. But the horror of this murderous tree pales in insignificance when the source of the voices is made clear. Bound in the branches are heads, human heads. Some still bear the marks of Navarre tattoos on their withered skin. As the abomination moves, they begin a terrible chorus of shouts and screams. Yet these are not husks. They appear to still possess intelligence and awareness. They cajole and threaten Imperial heroes arrayed against them, spouting slogans of the heirs of Turniel, urging Briars and Navarre alike to abandon the fight and join them in immortality. The fight that ensues rages back and forth through the cramped interior of the heir's stronghold. The beast proves surprisingly flexible, sometimes falling horizontal and dragging itself through the narrow corridors like a dreadful worm. In the end, though, it is overcome. It attempts to flee back to the central chamber, but the courageous heroes stop it. With axe and spear and burning brand they put an end to it. It writhes and screams as it dies, and the heads bound into its branches shriek along with it. And then it is dead. After the fact, after it is possible to properly examine it, it seems that this is some terrible spawn of Yhornegrah, a herald of great power sent by its mistress to support the heirs of Turniel, the true castellan of their twisted fortress. Indeed, with the herald gone, the structure itself begins to unravel. The trees and undergrowth that create the structure begin to resume their normal shapes, inasmuch as anything within the Valorn is normal. One final horror is confirmed by the magicians and physicians accompanying the heroes. The heads were indeed still alive. The heads of former magicians of the heirs of Turniel, willingly bound into the body of the herald. There is whispered speculation that in some way they remained bound together, as well as to the horrible tree thing that was their host. A powerful coven of spring magicians, made immortal by Yhornegrah, but the most unspeakable price. As the wooden stronghold falls apart, the adventurers make an orderly retreat. The remaining Valorn spawn likewise quit the collapsing fortification, fleeing into the woods. The last remaining fingerhold of the heirs of Turniel and Broceliande is excised. Not only has a terrible spawn of Yhornegrah been destroyed, but valuable lore about the Valorn and its powers have also been seized. Echoes and Abominations. Vastly older, more powerful, and more omnipresent than any legacy of the heirs of Turniel is the Valorn itself. Even if Broceliande is not quite the largest known, that honour goes to the untouched Visukomo and Axos. It certainly seems to be the most malignant. Right now, smothered in winter magic, it seems almost quiescent. The Valorn spawn are slow to respond to the intrusion of so many questing heroes, but as the seasons turn, they become more and more agitated, and the further the explorers push into the depths of the cursed forests, the more dangerous the abominations become. For some, the myriad ways the Valorn expresses its corruption prove exhausting. Husks, ettercaps, twisted beasts, predatory vegetation, abominations that bear no resemblance to anything familiar. The cavalcade of monstrosities seem to have no end. Many Imperial adventurers have only faced husks before. Here in Broceliande they are forced to face the truth that they are the least of the Valorn's forces. That is not to say they are some minor nuisance. The margins of the Valorn are choked with former humans and a scattering of orcs who have been entirely overwhelmed by the miasma and remade as something absolutely profane. It is a sobering moment to come face to face with an unnatural husk that was once a courageous Thorn, or an ambitious questing knight, or a loyal soldier of the Empire. The Valorn-spawn husks hold a distorting mirror up to those who dare to push into the twisted forest. The deeper into the forest the heroes travel, the stranger the husks become. Perhaps, as some scholars believe, human and orc husks slowly transform over time into something more baneful. And there can be no doubt that some of these husks are truly ancient. Beneath the bark and the briars, there are husks formed 1,000 years ago, in the aftermath of Turiniel's fall. There are increasing stories of encounters with husks that wield magic to enthuse or heal their fellow abominations. They turn the forest against interlopers, bending brambles to capture living adventurers, or exhaling great gouting clouds that sap strength and vitality. There are also more encounters with rare Valorn-spawn hulks, giant creatures whose blows shatter armor or send grown warriors sprawling. Most assume the husks are the result of ogres falling to the Valorn, yet there are many more of these things than can be easily explained that way. For the most part, though, even the stranger husks are predictable. They wait quiescent in the miasma until they sense the presence of humans or orcs, and then they attack unrelentingly until they are destroyed or intruders are overwhelmed. Without this directness, without this headlong rush to silence the beating hearts of the untainted, they would be a much greater threat. There are plenty of other threats in Broceliande. Multiple swarms of ettercaps nest in the deep woods. Chitinous insect beasts with proportions of humans or orcs seethe and boil despite the withering that holds the territory in its sear embrace. They wield weapons seized from fallen foes, bind scraps of metal or leather to their carapace with vines, and fight together with a cunning that far exceeds that of any natural beast. There is little doubt amongst those who face them that they are aware of themselves and their enemies. They possess a uniformity of form not found in true Valorn-spawn. No more marked a difference between them than between any two humans. Fortunately, they seem no more inclined to wander than the husks do. Not at the moment, not with that ubiquitous curse soothing them, whispering the deep silence of winter and the quiet season. But when a party of adventurers strays into their territory, they close around the trespassers like a bear trap, a noose of living warriors that ruthlessly, implacably, mercilessly fight to destroy those who have violated their invisible borders. The fruit of loss. It might be a simple matter to avoid the ettercaps if not for the fact that without fail they have established winding settlements of wood and earth around the locations the heralds identify as the Gardens of Abomination. There are half a dozen of these scattered haphazardly around Broceliande, places that reek of Valorn and out-of-control spring magic. The ettercaps swarm near them but do not stray into the actual gardens themselves. Here the chaotic madness of the Valorn is manifest in every living thing. Everything unique, everything distorted and twisted out of any sane proportion, a fever dream of sickness and life, wrapped around each other like murderous snakes biting at each other's necks. Those who penetrate the Gardens of Abomination do not emerge unchanged. They do not manifest physical transformations like the horrors that lurk there, but rather their nightmares will be forever shaped by the things they have seen there. Monstrous aberrations that defy classification, where flesh and wood seem fluid and interchangeable. Those brave enough to risk these pits of obscenity learn that each one is folded around a powerful spring regio, interpenetrated and absorbed into the fabric of the Valorn. They also return with treasures, fruits of the forest filled with nascent spring power. There is talk of sap that provides miraculous healing, of misshapen fruit whose rind grants anyone brave or foolish enough to eat it a burst of unparalleled endurance, or fleshy flowers whose juice focuses the perception of spring magic to allow a magician to wield unparalleled power, assuming, of course, that one is brave or foolish enough to consume them and draw on the Valorn's fragmentary strength locked within. There are no remnants of old Turiniel within these places. Anything that might have once marked them out as belonging to the former masters of Broceliande has long since fallen into utter ruin. Nor are they the only regio in the forest. They are simply the most powerful. It is notable that there are very few regio in the bounds of the Valorn that are not attuned to the magic of spring. A scattered handful at most, primarily aligned with winter. Those explorers who find such a place note that the Valorn hangs back from the winter regios. Although its spawn do not balk at pressing into such places in pursuit of trespassers, they offer occasional respite from the relentless horror of the Valorn. A power that preserves. There is one other place deep in the heart of the Valorn that provides a sanctuary all of its own. On the outskirts of the Valorn heart, less than half a day's march from the ruins of the city, is a grove of ancient weirwood trees. The heralds of Rhiannos know of it and its rough location, but actually reaching it requires the concerted effort of dozens of champions. The Valorn holds the grove in a jealous embrace. Hundreds of husks, themselves some of the oldest ever encountered in Broceliande, throng in the forest around it. The approach is guarded by several dreadful, unique abominations. A river beast whose heads open up like a tooth-lined orchid, ape-like behemoth with 4 arms and 1 eye and venom-tipped spurs on hands and feet, a serpent with hundreds of raking taloned legs, and an almost incomprehensible creature not quite a translucent cat, and not quite a shimmering crab. Together, the heroes of the Empire are able to defeat or drive off these guardians, and press through to the Weirwood Grove, where they discover peace. These trees are untouched, the land between them pristine. There is no miasma here. The air is pure and fresh, albeit tinged with the cold hand of the coming winter. The spawn of the Valorn press around the edges, but they do not venture among the trees. Something similar was encountered in Liathaven, when the Westwood was cleansed of the Valorn's presence. Living Weirwood, it seems, is anathema to the corruption of the Valorn. It provides a safe location for heroes to camp, as long as they do not become too complacent. There are signs that the Imperial heroes are not the first people to find this grove, merely the first people in a long time. The remains of old structures are unearthed, beneath centuries of leaf mould. There is little time to explore them in detail, but it seems that there was 6 Weirwood buildings a very long time ago. Rusted pieces of iron and a few scraps of tarnished bronze are all that remain of whoever built them. Or almost all. The first adventurers to fight their way through to the sanctum in the Valorn find one other remnant of the last people to camp here. A squat stone monolith carved with angular designs, standing alone near the middle of the grove. A singing stone. The last singing stone protected from the years and the malice of the Valorn by the voices of the trees, as the heralds of Rhiannos have it. There is no way to be sure how long it has waited here, or where it came from. Many of the Navarre heroes who visit the grove have seen something similar, but that stone is lost to them now. The Vates confirm that it has similar powers, and against all the odds those powers still remain active. A true artifact of lost Turuniel. There is little argument when the Navarre claim it. Discussions begin as to the best way to transport the heavy stone out of Broceliande. A challenging task. Those who undertake it are likely to be fighting Valornspawn every inch of the way. Remaining heroes who have found the Sanctuary Grove, as one of the Highborn dub it, begin to plan the final leg of their exploration. A base camp is established amongst the trees, and the approach to ancient Turuniel itself begins. All that remains. The walls of Turuniel are broken, ruptured by the Valorn as it rose and spread. They were no doubt splendid once, an impenetrable ring of white granite girding the heart of the Turuniel Empire. Back in their day, when they were whole, they would easily have been equal to the walls of modern Temeshwar. Now they are just a boundary marker, more overgrown rubble than wall. Beyond them, Turuniel itself. The city after which the entire empire was named, first and greatest of the 7 cities, the exemplar after which Hyrcanian and Emrys and Biantal Dol and Liathaven and Seren and Cavan were modelled. For the heroes of the League or Highguard who have made it this far, it is perhaps a little sobering to think of Turuniel as a city, to see in its destruction an echo of Sarvos or Temeshwar or Bastion, to see the utter ruin that it has become, transformed by the Valorn and the hubris of its masters. Echoes of its former splendour are all that remains. This is the heart of the Valorn. There is no peace here. Massive Valorn warped trees thrust through what were once wide avenues paved with stone. Many of the buildings are gone. Every remaining structure is wrapped in greenery, smothered in ivy and bramble, and less identifiable vegetation. There is no river, but everywhere are pools and wells connected to cisterns under the fallen city, fed perhaps by some deep aquifer far beneath the ground. Sadly, the waters are as infested with the Valorn as anything else, choked with plants and home to horrible hungry beasts. A delicate task, the exploration of Turuniel, and one made possible only by the power of the Golden Cauldron. Without it, the miasma would likely overwhelm all save the strongest. It is thicker here than anywhere else in Broceliande, visible as a thick green fog that settles and pools amongst the ruins, as often as not hiding ancient briar-borne husks, or worse things. The Valorn spawn here partake of the strength of the Valorn heart itself. They prove extremely difficult to defeat. Given even a few moments' respite, they recover from all save the most terrible of blows, regenerate severed limbs, and return stronger than before to destroy trespassers. There is no hope of a direct assault. Those who have come this far must move carefully and with purpose, avoiding the beasts of the ruined city, and fleeing if they attract attention. Yet there are wonders here still. The Terran knew how to build. How else would so many of the city's buildings have survived a millennium under the weight of the Valorn? There is plenty of evidence of white granite here, and mithril and even weirwood. The aesthetic is not always pleasing to modernize. The Terran architects and engineers preferred straight lines and squared corners to a degree that sometimes proves unsettling, even beyond the living horrors of the city. Streets and avenues are straight, columns are square rather than cylindrical, and there are few signs of public statuary such as one might expect to find scattered across a city of the Highguard or the League. It is hard to believe that when the Terranial Empire was alive, it was in any way beautiful. These buildings have purpose, undoubtedly, but sometimes it is hard to tell what that was. For every obvious bathhouse or marketplace, there is a structure like the partially collapsed stepped pyramid, covered in intricate angular designs, its inner chamber open to the sky, found a short distance from the eastern walls. What was it for? It would be easy to guess that it had some ritual significance, but nothing about the building hints as to what that might be. There was one structure that attracts particular attention when it is found, especially amongst the heroes of Wintermark who have come this far. It lies at the very periphery on the western side of the city, where it is one of the few that have survived the Valorn's crushing weight. The squat building of white granite with the fallen-in roof proves to stand over several underground cellars or galleries that have become home to a particularly vicious breed of venomous Attacap. The beasts aren't important. What is important is that the interior walls of this structure are marked with familiar runes. Wintermark runes. Several of the heroes who explore here are struck by how eerily reminiscent of the Runeforge beneath far-off Scarcind is. Beneath the omnipresent foliage are shattered remains of what might once have very well been a Runeforge. And again, these broken remnants put the explorers in mind of the ruin of the Gildenheim Runeforge. What is a building that seems patterned after a lost subterranean forge that many speculate was built by the mythical trolls, doing here, in the heart of Turinial? A mystery, and any hope of solving it will need to wait. The season is growing late, the protection of the Golden Cauldron beginning to falter, and there is one more thing to be done. The heart that aches. Winter is nearly here, and with it the magical vitality of the Golden Cauldron begins to wane. There is one chance to push on, to penetrate the greatest of Turinial's mysteries, the Valorn heart itself. From their makeshift camp at Sanctuary Grove, a number of courageous explorers plan their approach to the center of the city, to the immense trees that form the heart of the Valorn, where the miasma is at its heaviest, where the Valorn spawn are thickest. Not to harm it. It is beyond the harm of a handful of heroes as a mammoth is beyond the harm of a mountain hare. But to see, to gaze on the wellspring of the Valorn, on the fountainhead of Turinial's folly, on the place where the Navarre arguably began. No living Bran, or Thorn, or Vate, or Guide has ever looked on a Valorn heart. Here, now, at the heart of the largest Valorn in the Empire, there is a chance for some at least to gaze upon the face of their enemy for the first time since the destruction of Miaren. The restless city. But what they see there, what they saw there, is not for me to tell. Let them speak themselves if they wish. For now my story of heroes and horrors is done. Broceliande. Turinial continues to slumber, but its sleep is restless. Without the blanket of winter magic, this great adventure would have been impossible, even with the courage of imperial citizens and the power of the Golden Cauldron, and the unfathomable whims of the Eternals. The last of Rionos' supernatural vitality fades as the winter solstice gathers momentum. It is time for the explorers to withdraw from Broceliande, to think about what they have learned, to weigh the treasures they have carried out of the accursed forest, and to wonder if the price was worth the prize. Game information. How far you go. The adventure inspired by the Regent of the Eternal Sea has been a triumph. Imperial heroes have pressed deep into unknown territory of the Broceliande and returned with both valuable prizes and hidden lore. After some discussion, however, we've decided to slightly alter the way we provide these rewards. This differs from the way the Wind of Fortune rewards were laid out, by reducing some of the randomness, focusing instead on a key choice that every player involved can make. Each of the players who assigned their military unit to Broceliande can pick one of 3 possible destinations where their character has gone, which in turn will determine what additional rewards they receive. The 3 choices are the Sanctuary Grove. If your character fought their way through to the Sanctuary Grove, then you will receive a Wain of Weirwood taken from the ancient site. The Gardens of Abomination. If your character went to the Gardens of Abomination or other areas of strong Valorn corruption, they will receive 5 additional Chaos Fruits. The Heart of Corruption. If your character pressed on to the Heart of Turaniel, they will receive no additional reward, but instead get a briefing sheet describing what they witnessed in their player pack at the beginning of the event. You can only choose one of these 3 destinations for your character. There was not enough time in a single season for any character to be involved in more than one of these crucial fights. Either your character went to the Sanctuary Grove, the Gardens of Abomination, or the Heart of Turaniel. Unless they email in, a player receives 1 additional Wain of Weirwood and is assumed to have gone to the Sanctuary Grove. Any player who sent their military unit to Broceliande can email plot@profounddecisions.co.uk and request either of the rewards for the Gardens of Abomination, 5 Chaos Fruits, or the Heart of Corruption, a briefing sheet of what lies there. These rewards are in addition to the standard rewards below. Game information, standard rewards. The adventure in Broceliande has been an unqualified triumph, and a great deal of treasure has been brought out from the Valorn Woods. Rather than their normal production, military units that participated in the grand adventure will receive specific rewards. Thanks to the force assigned to this opportunity, a standard military unit receives 15 random measures of forest resources and 17 random herbs. These represent treasures taken from the Valorn-infested areas, seized from the Druge, found in ancient ruins, or gathered by the side of monster-haunted lagoons. Every adventurer will receive an additional, unique consumable gathered from the Valorn Gardens. It is not immediately clear what they will do. There seems to be several strains of fruit, but they are at least comparable to a powerful potion in their general effect. In addition to their immediate use, farmers in Astolat, Cassanea, and Mormwald have spoken of eerie plants and flowers steeped in spring magic that grow in places the Valorn has touched. It may be possible to plant some of these fruit in fertile soil and cultivate them, although it is too soon to say what the outcome may be. More information about this option will be provided in the Winds of Fortune. In addition to individual rewards, each military unit has a chance to gain a share of a random reward. Some of these rewards take the form of ribbons. These represent relics of fallen explorers, relics of the heirs of Turaniel, and ribbons representing relics of the Turaniel civilization. In addition, 20 rings of Ilium, uncovered from the untouched Valorn-infested groves, will be distributed randomly amongst the military units assigned to support the adventure. This adventure has recovered valuable lore as well. Breaching the walls of Turaniel and reaching the Valorn Heart will reduce the amount of time needed for the Great Library of Acanian to research the weakness of the Valorn, if it is built, by 6 months. The Navarre have also uncovered the last singing stone from the Sanctuary Grove. It is currently under the watchful gaze of the nation's egregores. The advisor on the Valorn will receive a short additional briefing, providing more information about the heirs of Turaniel, their understanding of the Valorn, and their schemes. Finally, there are some unlocked-for rewards. The highborn pilgrims who aided the adventure into Broceliande have returned with treasures of their own. Every congregation that gave up Liao and Synod votes to support the expedition will receive 5 random herbs gathered from the forests and donated to the priests by returning congregants. Congregations are not, however, eligible for a share of random rewards. Participation. Anyone who took part in the expedition into Broceliande is free to create stories about what they did there, in keeping with the general content of this Winds of War. Rhiannos' cauldron protected the explorers of Broceliande from the effects of the miasma. The vitality it granted means that there are no lingering traumatic wounds amongst the survivors. However, the forest was nonetheless dangerous. Any player who sent their military unit to Brokeliand may choose to roleplay that their soldiers were wiped out by one of the horrors there. In return, they can email Profound Decisions to arrange a different personal resource of the same rank as the military unit they have lost, located in one of their nation's territories. Everyone who went to Brokeliand has drunk of the Golden Cauldron. For many, the role-playing effect of doing so will linger until the end of the winter solstice. Anyone who sent their military unit may choose to experience the following roleplay effect. You are filled with the vigor of youth. Nothing seems impossible to you. The more risky an endeavor, the more it excites you. As long as you continue to roleplay appropriately, you will also gain the benefit of an additional temporary hero point. This extra hero point is the first one spent when you spend a hero point. It doesn't increase your normal maximum, and once spent, it is gone. If not used, it fades by the end of the event. Additionally, any unlineaged human who went to Brokeliand has been exposed to the significant amounts of spring magic, especially those who explored the Gardens of Abomination. If you assigned your military unit, you could use this as an explanation for gaining the Briar lineage. If you wish to do so, email Profound Decisions at plot@profouндecisions.co.uk. If you already have the Briar lineage, you can use this as an impetus to increase your trappings, especially if you wish to add flowers to your Fizz rep. This increase can be temporary if you wish. Unlike the normal rules for increasing trappings, the impact of exploring Brokeliand may be temporary.